Welcome to the webinar, everyone. And today's topic is going to be exchange of queens. Of course, exchange of pieces in general is a very important topic because it's rarely is the case when an exchange is exactly equal, like it wouldn't. Um, Most of the time, when an exchange of a piece leads to a slight advantage or a slight disadvantage, or it could be significant as well to one side. Yeah, we should always be careful about that. But um, within exchange of pieces, exchange of queens is the most important one because, of course, the queen is um, the most important piece. So it changes the type of the position a lot, and then we have to evaluate because the thing is that uh, exchanges are already complicated enough, and then if we have a set of principles that okay, these are the things which I should look out for when I'm looking for especially exchange of queens, then you can try to apply that same set of principles whenever in the game that exchange of queens arise. So this is what I'll try to show you. I'll try to, I'll not show you a lot of principles, like, because the thing is that we are not trying to theorize the exchange of queens here. What my plan today is that to show you certain examples about exchange of queens and to show you that all right, when you apply certain set of principles in that, then maybe a few only, then how you can in a practical game you can make a quick decision. So that's what it is going to be. So I have some instructive positions and I have some instructive games as well. For example, we'll see the game of Spassky versus Petrosian. On that we will, if we get some time, then we might see an instructive game between Mamedyarov and Nigel Short. And of course, we'll see some positions as well, and yeah, to increase your overall understanding about exchanging. Um, so there is a comment: I can rarely figure out whether an exchange benefits me or my opponent. Usually, I have no idea. Yeah, we'll try to. Yeah, so through this webinar, we'll try to address the queen exchange part of it, and then in maybe coming webinars, one of the topics could be general exchange of pieces, which is of course a bit more complicated than the queens, but slowly we will try to address that as well. Now, let me um, let me put up the first position here. So let's let's see. Here we have this position. So normally I use the quiz mode, but for some of these positions, I think they are more understanding based as well. So this time you will need to be you can use the comment section for answer because I'm not just looking for more and looking for some of your ideas in this position. So so when we look at this position, so what are some of the things we see? So one thing which we can see is that what I see when I look at this position. So let me just try to uh, give my thoughts on this. So one thing which I see is that I have some space advantage on the queen side. Why? Because my pawn is on d5. So that gives me some space on the queen side. Whether that's relevant or not, that we will see later. But I have some space. My opponent has some space on the king side because it is f4. The pawn is on f4. Normally, these type of positions arise out of king's Indian defense. What else actually? Another thing which I see in this position is that my pieces are much more active than that of my opponent. I mean, knight c4, bishop a3. Bishop e2 is not that active, but still, compared to knight on e8, bishop on g7 is blocked. Bishop on c8 is not developed, but it has its own. It can be used, but still, from piece placement point of view, I have some advantage. So I have space advantage. My pieces are well placed. It seems like I have more activity. But what is one thing which is in black's favor? So I told you space advantage on the king side. So now black's plan is very simple. So in this position, black just wants to expand on the king side. So black wants to play h5, black wants to play g4, and then black wants to play queen h4, and then maybe just go for the attack. Now, whether that attack will work or not, that's another question, but you don't want to take any chances like that. You have all of these other advantages, so you should simply fight for it. So here comes the most important thing. When you are deciding whether you should go for the exchange of queens or not, the most important factor will be the king safety. So potentially, so it could be your king might be weaker already, or potentially there could be a lot of attack on your king. So that's when you should look for the exchange of queens. This is, yeah, the most basic yet the most important thing. So when I look at this position and I see that my opponent has space advantage on the king side, and there is a pawn storm coming, and the queen could come to h4, then the first thought of mine would be, let's just get rid of the queens, because if I get rid of the queens, then the space advantage and the king safety of mine, space advantage of black and the king safety of mine won't be that much of an issue. So then when that becomes clear, so I'll play queen b6. And there are other weaknesses present in black's position. So if he tries to play something like queen f6, then d6 falls. And though the queens have not been exchanged, but I've already won a pawn, and it's just things have become even more difficult for black. Now let's say black exchanges the queens, exchange it, then you do this. Now, if you want, you can take the bishop, then you can say that okay, the bishop could be active or something. But here is another important thing. You have to be quite flexible. So what's the hurry to take the bishop? If you look at it, where exactly is the bishop going? I mean, nowhere. If it goes to d7, you can always take it. Put the pressure on this pawn. And then if your opponent plays bishop f8 or something, then you can play rook fc1. Get the rook on the open file. And now look at your pieces and look at your opponent's pieces. So the only thing which was which could potentially create problem for you, that is the king safety of yours, because of the potential pawn storm of your opponent. Once the queens are off the board, that won't be that much effective, because you have to remember queen is the most important defender as well as the most important attacker. So when you take that queen away from the board, then the significant amount of attacking potential of your opponent goes away. Queen b6 exactly allowed you to do that. So this is the first thing. Whenever from now onwards, whenever you're playing a game and exchange of queens is being offered, the first thought which should come into your mind is, what's the king safety situation? And if you feel like your king is weak, or potentially can get significantly weaker, then you want to exchange the queens. And if you feel like, okay, my opponent's king can get more weaker, then you want to keep the queens. Now, based on this, what we'll look at is, we'll look at the example from the game between Spassky versus Petrosian, and then we will learn further. And this was played. So this is from the 1966 World Championship match. Let me set up the position now. So here we go. And please think carefully in this position. What would you do? So I won't give you too much time. I'll give you about 1.5 minutes, and then we'll go ahead. So white to play, and you have some time. Please think. Okay, so let's go back. So after I had shown the earlier example, this became a bit clear of what we want to achieve. Now let's look at this position again, right? So opposite side castling middle game is there. And there you should know that in opposite side castling middle game, the most important thing is to go for the pawn storm so that you can open the files and attack your opponent's king. But the problem in white's position is that black already has this semi open file available. So if we go for the attack on black's king side, then we are going to be much slower, because black has already got that semi open file. So we are not going to be fast in our attack. So Spassky also realized that. So in that case, what he realized that if he can't counter attack, then he should significantly reduce the potential of a black's attack. And he made the move queen g5 so that he can win the sorry, exchange the queens. Now, so some of you might have seen or might not have seen that. Did he actually blunder the pawn in doing so? So no, he had a particular plan. So now the question is, what exactly was his plan? So I'll give you about 2.5 minutes for this one, and you need to find what was Spassky planning when for queen takes f2. So you have some time. All right, let's go ahead. So some of you found the correct idea. So it is rook f3. Now queen has only one square to go, that is g1. And here, actually, some of you played the correct idea, that is bishop b5, and some of you played bishop d3. So we'll discuss bishop d3 as well. So threat of bishop b5 in this position is not only not only rook takes g1, but also bishop takes d7. So another question is, why not bishop d3 in this position? So I think after bishop d3, since you only have a single threat, I can play queen h2 in this position, because if you play rook h3, then the queen can go to d6. I think that's the problem with bishop d3, because if you can get more material, why not just go for it? So bishop takes d7 is the threat, and rook takes g1 is the threat. So okay, there is a suggestion. Let's see. So bishop d3, queen h2, and then rook g3. Rook g3, g6, and then h5. Let's analyze it. Is it winning? So I do have an interesting move in this position. Actually, two moves. I'm just trying to compare which one to go for. But I guess. All right, I'll go for h6 in this position. So I was trying to compare between h6 and f6, but I want to keep this square vacant for my knight. So my idea is that the queen is, if queen h6, then of course queen g3. That's my idea. From And if queen g4 or something, then knight f6. And if queen f4 with the threat of rook g6 check, winning my queen, I think I might have queen h5. Looks very dangerous for black, but okay, I don't see a clear win for white. So I think maybe white might have some attack, but it's too complex. So just bishop d5 would be more simpler. So this was, of course, Spassky calculated this, queen f2, and then he saw that since queen takes f2 is not available, queen exchange is unstoppable. So now let's see. So just exchanging the queens. So how did he continue the game? So after queen g5, Petrosian played c takes d4. Exchange the queens. And now we got this. Now one thing which you should remember is that um, there are certain piece combinations which are favorable to you. So in general, it is said that rook and bishop in most of the positions are are better than the combination of rook versus knight, because both of them are long range pieces, rook and the bishop, so they coordinate better than rook versus knight. So that's also one advantage which Spassky got. Another thing is now these two pawns are isolated pawns and white's rooks are active, so he'll be able to take advantage of that. Now rook b7 was played, trying to defend these. Then he played rook b3, exchanging the rook, because he was sure that if one pair of rook is exchanged, then black will not be in a position to defend those weaknesses. He played rook a8. So his plan was defend this pawn with the rook, and after rook c4, play knight e8. Just be defensive and then defend both the pawns. But eventually something is going to fall. Rook a4 was played, putting pressure here. He activated the knight, now g3. The plan is to play bishop g2 and win this. Attack the rook and then win the pawn. Um, And then just king f8 was played because Petrosian recognized that he cannot save the pawn anymore. So bishop g2, rook c8, and then rook takes a7 was played. And then Spassky went on to win the game. So this was why I showed you is because how to continue after winning winning queen. So if you want to see this game, this is I'll just write it in the comments. So Spassky Petrosian World Championship match 1966. Um, Game 23. This endgame is completely lost. It will take some time actually for white to win, because white will have to create a pass pawn on the queen side. But And there is not much which black can do. It is lost. So this is you can see the whole game actually if you just 23rd game of 1966 World Championship match. So you see, even in the why I showed you this example is that even in World Championship matches, these type of very simple things. It's not like when it comes to even the world champions actually that they have this different set of principles for the positional play. Spassky recognized that his king is more weaker, so he's like, okay, if I can exchange the queens, then that would be better for me, and then that's what he did. Mm, all right, now let's go for one more position, and then based on that position, we will see the game between Mamedyarov and Short. So it's not from their game, but it's from something something else, but it's quite interesting. So we'll look at few positions and then we'll go for that Mamedyarov versus Nigel Short game. Uh, all right, here we go. So the next position is this is the one. Let me put the quiz. So I think I don't want to give too much time. Just 2 minutes for this is enough. Mm. All right, so this is white to play, and you have some time. Okay, so some of you decided to exchange the queen, some of you didn't decide to exchange, and then you played some other move, but we'll see. So what to do? So good number of you played queen takes e4 in this position. So here comes another principle. Looks sometimes looks very simple, but it's like one thing which you have to remember is repeatedly doing simple things over and over in chess is the secret behind getting better. So how consistent you are in that is important. So I think you see second important thing after the king safety is the material part. So the thing is that you are down a pawn in this position. So queen exchange is not something which should be your first priority here. So queen takes e4, rook takes e4, and black will play king e7 and then just get the rook out. And you have some compensation for the pawn because you can play maybe rook c1, but to fight for the advantage in this position is going to be pretty difficult. So yeah, I think so that already just being down a pawn should make it clear that okay, exchange of queens is not something which you should look for. Now, so here there are the thing is that let's say you decided you saw that you are down a pawn and you don't want to exchange the queens, but then the question is where to go. So there is queen d6 was the suggestion, queen b7 was the suggestion, then queen a3 was the suggestion, etc. So, but queen a3 is the most accurate move because your king is not entirely safe as well. So you want to avoid this queen a4 check ideas. And queen a3 is something which does that. And there is also another important thing why you should put the queen on a3 because your opponent's king is in the center, but yeah, it can. So you want to stop that king from castling. And if knight c5 is played, this looks like an interesting move that okay, next move queen takes b3 will come, but there is rook c1 and black loses material because queen takes b3, queen takes b3, knight takes b3, and rook c8 is coming. So even this idea of black doesn't work. So queen a3 not only stops your opponent's this potential queen a4 checks, but also yeah, keeps the queen on this diagonal so that you can attack you can stop your opponent from castling. And then next move is going to be rook c1. And then because say your opponent plays queen b5, now you can play rook c1, exchange the defender, and then there can be these threats of rook c8. King is still in the center of black. Your king is safe, and then you can your attacking chances gets even better. Say your opponent plays queen b7, stopping rook c8. Now there is no queen a4, so now it's time to go queen d6, so that you can bring the rook to the seventh rank. Now rook c7, and the game would be over. So in this position, not only from the king safety perspective, but also from the material perspective, you have to keep the queens. So queens must not be exchanged here. All right, let's go for another position. That's this one is going to be, I think, of all the positions I've given so far, this one is going to be a bit difficult. Okay, it might be for some, might not be for others, but quite instructive nonetheless. So let's look at that. Let me put it in the quiz mode. So I think 2.5 minutes for this will be a good attempt. So black to play. Please think what to do here. All right, so let's go ahead. As expected, this was a bit of difficult one. So if we look at material perspective, then black's 2 pawns up. And from king safety perspective, so this is an interesting question actually. So can someone so no quiz or anything like that. You can please type in this position whose king do you think is weak and for what reason? You need to give me the reason. You cannot say like black king is weak, white king is weak. You need to write your reasons. I'll give you like some time to type. So whose king do you think is weak and why? The why behind that is very important. So you can have multiple reasons for that. That's completely fine. But please give your reasons. And um okay, so you can type for like a minute or two, and then once I get some responses, then I'll discuss. Okay, so majority of you have said that white's king is weak. Some of you have said black's king is weak. Okay, no, I'll tell you who's what I feel. But before that, okay, around last 30-40 seconds, maybe if some of the others are typing, I'll give them the opportunity. Then I'll discuss. Okay, I think we can go ahead. So majority of you have said that uh, White's king is weak because there are no pieces around it, and some of you have said that Black's king is weak because though there are pieces around Black's king, but White's pieces are more active. So actually, this time majority is correct. White's king is weak. So, but the question is that there was those of you who said that Black's king is weak. So I think there was someone who also typed that okay, White's king seems weaker, but there is no way for Black to take advantage of it or something like that. So we'll see. So in this position, because three pieces are there for White, all of them are focused on the queen side. So yeah, there is nothing on the king side. Black has the open file, but still black has his own issues as well. I mean, look at that bishop. Then and it's also another thing. It's also a good question that what can you just make out of that open file? So are you can you just with that open file attack your opponent? Is that just enough to call an attack? So but we'll see what can we do. So right now Black's king has defenders. The bishop is there, rook is there, queen is there. So white can win bunch of pawns. So that goes without saying. White can win bunch of pawns. But can white successfully attack black's king? Most likely not with these many pieces. But so the first priority in this position is it's a comparison between the material part and the king safety part. Because you are 2 pawns up in this position, but it's clear that you are going to lose one of them. Either you will lose e6 or you will lose b7. And if you lose b7, then most likely you might even lose e7. So some of you suggested the answer like, okay, let's play queen f7, and then if he exchanges it, then it's fine. I'm just down a pawn, or in this position like queen e8, and then I'll just exchange it, and then I'm fine. But there is a problem in this position. Although you are up a pawn, but this knight has a d5 outpost square, and look at this bishop of yours. Actually, it's just staring at the pawn. So the problem is that even though you have exchanged the queens, but that extra pawn might not be enough for you to continue with your so might not be enough for you to push for a win because of that central outpost square for the knight and that bad bishop of yours. So that's one. But another thing is that, but okay, should we just give these pawns? Because if we, so the correct answer in this position is rook f6, because queen e6 is coming with a check. So queen exchange is being offered right now by white, but we should not accept it by playing rook f6. But now the question is, okay, why are we giving up these queenside pawns? If the attack is not successful in this position, then the position will completely fall apart. But now what we'll do is, see, this rook did the fantastic job of keeping the open file and defending this pawn. So queen exchange can be stopped. Now what we need to do is, we must understand that this bishop is not able to join the game. Even if we bring it to f8, it's like rook d8 and it will be pinned. So that bishop can't do much. And rook and queen might not be enough. So what we need to do in this position is that we need something else to join. We need the pawn to join the attack. If queen takes a7, then we can play g3. If queen takes e5, then queen h5. Queen h2 is a mate threat, unstoppable. Game is over. So you include um, um, the pawn and the queen, and yeah, combined with the rook, the position is lost. So what you should do is, here it was about material was in our favor, but king safe and but opponent's king was weak. So in that case, you should um, you should keep the queens, because there were no pieces around the king, around your opponent's king. You had pieces around your king, and you can make use of your queen and the pawn, and rook was already there for the attack. So that's how black gets the gets the advantage. So yeah, this was a bit more complicated one, because I told you that the two things which we have seen so far in exchange of queens, one was of course the king safety part, other was material part. But I already told you, when we are comparing the material and king safety part, then you want to prioritize the king safety part here. Here, despite being up in material, we are not exchanging the queens because the opponent's king is weak, so the queen can be more useful there. And also something about inclusion of I mean, making use of the pawns in attack. But okay, that's the discussion for some other day. So we'll do that. So here, now let's go for that let's go for a position before we go for that game of Nigel shot. um, let's uh, let's see, let me put up the position here, and the position is this one. I won't give you too much. I think all right, I guess 2.5 minutes should be enough. Black to play, and you have some time. All right, let's go ahead. So in this position, your opponent's king is in the center, so you should play queen a6 and not allow it to castle. So whenever, another important thing is that, yep, just once again, the king factor part. But right now it's not like it's castle and it's weak. It's weak because it is in the center. But if the king is in the center, then it's just a matter of a move before your opponent castles and the king becomes safe. So in that case, if the queen exchange is being offered, then one of the things which you might look for is like, okay, my opponent's king is in the center for now, so can I make use of the queen to stop that from happening? And if you see a way that the you can stop the castle, then you can go for it. And if not, then you might want to exchange the queens. Now here, say knight e2 also doesn't allow your opponent to castle, because I mean, castle, then the knight will go. So knight e2 is not even the move. But then someone can suggest, okay, I can play queen d1 in this position. Then you can play rook a8, and then say, okay, I'll offer exchange of queens here, because if I exchange, then king safety won't be that much of an important part. And if I don't exchange, then white can castle. But here, mm, I mean, you can avoid both of that. So I think there is, let's put a small quiz, and then we end this position. So what's the option for black then? So there is something. Okay, just 1.5 minutes. I don't want to spend too much time on that. So black to play. Okay, let's go ahead. So there is bishop b5. So once again, so I think I might have used this phrase before. One of my coaches told me this. So he said that development is completed when rooks are connected. So and when the king is on e1, the rooks won't be connected. So, and we are taking advantage of that. So bishop b5. Of course, the main point is if knight takes b5, then rook c1 check. And now white will have to move the queen again, and same problem, how to castle. So, queen a6. It's not that easy for white to castle. All right, so that's what you can do. Queen a6, and yeah, king will remain in the center. Now let's go for a very instructive game of Mamedyarov versus Nigel Short. Here we go. Let me flip the board. Okay. So this was the position, and you have to take the decision whether to keep the queens or exchange the queens. And how much time should I give you? I think 2 minutes should be enough for you to decide whether to, or 2.5. You can think a bit more. Keep or exchange, and if keep, then where to go, and if exchange, then what to do. You can think for a while and then make the decision. All right. So most of you decided to exchange the queens in this position, and yeah, some of you decided not to. Now the question is, why should we exchange and why should we not exchange? I think most of you those of you decided to exchange the queens. The key factor would have been this diagonal, because it looks quite unpleasant. Uh, I think we can. Okay, so this topic we'll discuss it in a bit more detail. Actually, I think I know the topic of the next webinar. That is, I think, some I'll the usefulness of a bad piece or something like that. I'll keep. So, what happens sometimes is that I'll elaborate a bit more. I'll have a webinar on this topic at some point soon. So, sometimes what happens is that there is a piece which is quite passively placed, and it is for example, this knight is extremely passively placed. Like, what is it doing? It is just stopping queen at 7, and it is doing nothing else. But the thing in this position, but sometimes the thing is that it is that one piece which is stopping the major threat or threats of your opponent. So what happens is that that enables the other pieces of yours to attack freely. Now if you look at this position, queen at 7 is not a threat because knight is here. Pawn is a pawn on h4, pawn on g4, pawn g5. This is all going to take time. It's not like your opponent's pawn storm is, it is opposite side castling middle game. So pawn storm is going to be important. So, but it's not like that pawn storm is going to come quickly. But let's just exclude that knight for a minute, and this battery, because queen at 7 is not a serious threat. And let's look at the other parts of the position. Bishop attacking the king, rook attacking the king, rook attacking the king, queen you can play somewhere else like queen c7, and then it will attack the king. If you look at it, that one piece is holding your king side, and that enables the other four pieces of yours to join the attack against your opponent's king, and it will be very dangerous for your opponent to stop it. So that's why in this position you should keep the queens, because the diagonal looks dangerous, but the seemingly passive knight, the seemingly bad knight, stops that major threat of your opponent, and yeah, your opponent isn't able to do much on the king side, at least quickly, and that gives you the opportunity for the counter play. Now, for example, then someone can say, okay, what if the opponent plays h4 and starts attacking? Then here we have an idea of rook b5 attacking this. And now I'll show you how the attack, how black's attack can go through quickly. B3, if B3 is played, queen C3, queen B2 mate threat is there, queen A1 mate threat is there. Already this game is over. So, and king C1, by the way, queen A1 will still be mate because bishop B1 is not coming. Four pieces, all of them are just, so, and not through just this diagonal, through this file as well. And when all joins the attack, then you will see what happens. Now, let's say if he plays in this position bishop b3, then you can play rook b4. See, already the bishop is not on this diagonal. If he moves the queen to d3, then a4. Remove the bishop and then continue with the attack. So that's the problem. Your attack is going to be much more faster if you keep the queens on the board, because The opponents. So you have a good number of pieces attacking your opponent's king, and you have active rook as well. So that rook lift can happen. You don't need to push the pawns in most of these positions. So now rook b4. So this was rook b5 was the idea which Mamedyarov was not so comfortable with. So what Mamedyarov played, he played knight d4. So he's like, he did not want Nigel shot to play rook b5. So what he did. Now the thing is that, see, we cannot make use of the rook right now, but the advantage for Nigel shot is that white is not attacking right now. So it's not like he needs to focus too much on the king side. He can now prepare. So he played a4. It looks like a blunder, but I mean bishop looks like a pawn blunder, but that's just lost. This is checkmate. So after a4, that pawn cannot be touched. A3 was played. Now, so what he did once he decided not to exchange the queens, now he's following the once again. See, it's very important. This is it's all about calculation is an important part of chess, no doubt about it. But you need to direct your calculation through principles. So in this position, the main principle was that uh, he has more number of attackers on his opponent's king, and pawn storm hasn't started for white, and the knight is defending the queen at seventh threat. So he doesn't want to exchange the queens because he feels like the attacking chances which he has against the opponent's king is much higher. So keeping the queens. Now he kept the queens, but it's not like now he has to see. Now what will happen is that he needs to apply another set of principles. So now the position is opposite side castling middle game. So what he needs to do, he needs to increase the attack. He cannot just sit here. Otherwise, white will start playing g4, h4, g5. So then, what do we know about opposite side castling? You should push the pawns in front of the front of your opponent's king, so that we can create more weaknesses. That's exactly what he's doing by playing a4. So, and he wants to play a3, so he can create more weaknesses. Because once again, the important thing is the more pawns you push in front of your opponent's king, and then the more pawns we push in in front of our king, the weaker the king becomes. But he wants to stop a3, so he played a3 in this position. Now, okay, this pawn is blocked, but it's not like he has only one pawn. He has another pawn as well. So he started pushing this pawn, b5. Then f4 was played. So okay, Mamedyarov is slowly trying to increase the attack, but once again, this is nothing you have to worry about. You can focus on the queen side. b4. He is this is not the only move. You can prepare it by playing rook b8 and then b4, or queen a5, attack this and then play b4. But he wanted to sacrifice and then go for the attack, so he did that. Now, see, even before any pawn storm has started on the king side, black has been successful in breaking the queen side of the opponent. A takes b4, rook c4, attack this pawn. b5, once again, it's not just right now. It's all about finding the way to weaken the position further, not about pawns. Time to go for a3, attack. So weaken that even further. B takes a3 was played. Then just bishop takes d4. E takes d4, way too many weaknesses in white's position. Queen f5, this is a weakness, this is a weakness, this is a weakness. Something is going to fall. And it's not just about a pawn or something, it's just about that king. Because if he plays rook d3 defending this, then he's like, okay, you take this pawn. You can take the bishop now. So Mamedyarov played this, he brought the rook to defend this, but it's already too late. Queen takes a3. Rook b4 mate is coming now. And he resigned here. Get these three pieces. So what happened in the initial position? I think it's very important to understand. So that knight is passive, but that knight is fantastically doing that job of stopping the queen at 7 idea so that the other four pieces can join and then attack white's king. So that's why sometimes that one particular piece can play a very important role in defense so that the other pieces don't have to worry about the defense and they can freely go for the counter attack. They can freely attack the king. That's what happened in this game. And yeah, Nigel shot beat Mamedyarov in a very mm, brilliant manner. It all started with the decision of not exchanging the queens. All right, so I hope those of you decided to exchange the queens. It's clear that now it's clear that why. you should have avoided the exchange. All right, now, so we see we have some time. So let's look at not a game, but of course we can look at a position. It's going to be a bit of a tough one, but still, if the position is a bit difficult, then we can learn more from that. So let's see. This is the position, and let me make the move, and I'll give you all right 2.5 minutes for this one, and then we'll go ahead. Please think carefully what to do. All right, so this was once again not that easy position, but still, I wanted to sneak that in at the end because there is because of interesting. I mean, we can have a good discussion about it. So here it's material is equal 6 pawns versus 6 pawns. But if we look at it, then the so we can say that okay, white has control of this open file, and black has control of this important diagonal, which we can use for the attack. So I think a good number of you played. So queen f5 to attack the opponent's king, queen c2 and queen b1. That looks like a very strong move, but the problem is that the opponent can exchange the queens. Queen e7 check, king c8, and queen e6 check. And once that is played, then the king safety won't be that much of an issue for white anymore. And some of you also played rook e8. That's not a good idea. You don't want to, in this position, and it will be about an equal position. But the thing is, if you can, because for now, white has control of the open file, but it's not like your opponent can attack your king. You have the potential to attack the king, but it's not possible to play queen f5 because your opponent can exchange the queens by queen e7 check and queen e6. So we need to stop that, and then we need to play queen f5. So what we should do in this position is king d7. So here, so what does this do? So let's say white makes some random move, b4. Then in this position, we can play queen f5. And if queen e7 check, then you can play king c6. The king escapes, and yeah, you can queen exchange is not possible here. So maybe actually after b4, the king maybe not the right example because there can be this b5 check and it can get a bit complicated. So after b4, you can even make one more move if you feel like. You can play a6, the stopping b5 check ideas. So and then you can play queen f5. But the main point of this position is that if the king is on d8, then your opponent can exchange the queens. If the king is on d7, then when queen f5 is played, white cannot exchange the queens after queen e7 check. And you want to attack, you want to make use of the diagonal for the attack. And since there are no pawns blocking it, since white doesn't have a light square bishop, since the knight is badly placed on g1, if the queen gets to f5, then the attack is going to get really dangerous. And once you get the queen to f5, bishop is defending this rook, so you can even play rook e8 and then the rook can join the attack. So here, because of the diagonally, so most of the times what happens is that we do attack through the file, but this time we are keeping the queens so that we can do attack through this important diagonal. And this king move helps us in doing that. And then you can play queen f5 freely. Right. So I hope with the examples which we saw, the games which we saw, your understanding about when to exchange the queens and when not to exchange the queens has increased a bit. Of course, it's an ongoing process. And what you do is whenever you are analyzing your games, and no, rook and bishop is better than rook and knight. That's correct. But the thing is that it's always about comparison. The attacking potential will give you much more winning chances than the rook and bishop. So even after exchanging of queens, you can still play for the win if you want. It's not like that. But keeping the queens will give you more winning chances than the rook and bishop. So it's not like if you exchange the queens, then it will be bad position for you. No, but the advantage won't be as much as you would want when the queens will be on the board. Yeah, so attack is far better. Yeah, so it's like sometimes choosing there is a much better move available and there is a good move available. It's not like if you don't play the much better move, then the other ones automatically become bad or something like that. So if there are any questions or any doubts from the discussion, then you can please type it and then I can try to address that. Why king d? Oh, okay, good question. So no, king c7 allows exchange of queens with queen e7. So we need to control the e7 square. So that's why king d7. Okay, so what's the any questions? You can even unmute yourself actually for that matter. If you don't want to type, you can unmute yourself and then ask. So it's all good. Is it okay to exchange the queens during opening? Uh, you see, in the opening, one of the important opening principles is avoid moving your queens before completing your development. So if you are exchanging the queens in the opening itself, then it means that somewhere you also did not follow the opening principles and your opponent also did not follow the opening principles. So yeah, ideally in standard opening, you will not get the option to exchange the queens very early because you would be busy getting your minor pieces out and making your king safe. So, yeah. There are certain lines there can be, but yeah, all right. Not in the main lines maybe. So okay, Berlin is there, but okay, that's a discussion for some other day. So it's just quite complex lines. That's not yeah, exceptions are going to be there, but not for most openings. Hmm. Okay then, so seems like there are no questions. So we'll stop with this for now, and I'll see you in the next webinar. Yeah, bye.